heroic journey that started with the pleasingly simple food of Venice.
Can we have another? They're lovely.
And will end with the vibrant Byzantine dishes of Istanbul.
If you like, no problem.
I like.
In between, the culinary melting pot of East meets West, Croatia.
This is my lunch.
Back to basics, Albania.
Ham, salt, beans, water. Life.
And a place I know and love, Greece.
What would I do with them? Well, I'll put them on a barbecue. What would you do with them?
Fabulous dishes from the mountains to the sea. Who could ask for anything more? Every day on this journey, I think how blooming lucky I am driving through fabulous countryside in search of good things to eat. And in Greece, I'm starting to feel really at home.
It's just getting better and better, really. Well, in northern Greece, Ioannina, the mountains, the freshwater fish, some of it was nice. I didn't really like the frogs, but I do remember going up into a mountain village and having a horta pie, phyllo pastry pie. Particularly loved that, and a chicken pie. But then it's to southern Greece, and of course coming out of those northern mountains, yes, it's Greece, but this is the Greece that I love and remember. And it's all about vegetables. I sort of suddenly realised the Greeks are really, really vegetable cooks. But the meat is sort of only reserved for high days and holidays. It's about those tomatoes, those aubergines, those peppers, loads of olive oil, loads of onions, loads of garlic. And finally, what I haven't had yet, but I'm really, really desperate for, is some red mullet.
So, the more I travel south, the closer I get to the Greece of Homer, the stuff I remembered from school, the Spartans, brigands, pirates, and dreadful vendettas too. The southern Peloponnese is made up of two regions, Messenia on the west and the famous Laconia, where the word laconic comes from.
What I'm looking for on the sat-nav is Neapoli in Laconia. Thinking of Laconia, and so often in Greece you pass a place name and you think, I know that in some way. Laconia, laconic. The capital of Laconia is Sparta. And in ancient times, Philip of Macedonia sent a message to the king of the Spartans: if I capture Sparta, I will crush every stone. The reply was, if laconic.
So, for laconic, think Clint Eastwood. This is the town of Pylos on the Bay of Navarino. Never been here before, but I know and I can tell instantly that I'm going to like it. Simply because it just happens to be, well, like everyday Greece. Food, of course, is the reason for my journey, but I'm beginning to realise that it's rather a good thing to find places along the way that I might like to come back to one day, and I think this could be one.
I know I've said this before, but I love our supermarkets back home, but there's nothing to beat this. As a cook, it's like a sort of frame. I like the way the shop is with this arch. A frame of what do you want to cook today. And all those leaves at the back, they boil those and serve them with salt and olive oil. There's one there called Velita, which I've only just discovered. And that boiling in water, olive oil, lemon juice. That's Greece to me. I just love a little vista like this. Gets me very, very excited.
I'll stick my neck out and say that hardly any British holidaymakers will order this in a restaurant. But why not? Fresh wild greens from the fields and hedgerows. In the early morning and the evenings, you usually see old people out with their carrier bags because they know how jolly good this is for you. Basically, you boil them and then you stick them in very cold water to stop them cooking any longer. These greens are always eaten cold. Add oil, Kalamata, one of the best in the world, nutty and sweet, and then lemon juice. No wonder these old people live for over 100. Finally, salt and pepper, and there's a dish. It's like a pleasing health cure on a plate.
This bolita is absolutely delicious. It's sort of sad really because we don't do the same thing back home. But you could. I was sort of thinking you could use rocket or spinach or Swiss chard. And for a bit of bitterness you could use dandelion leaves, even nettles.
Nettles?
Yeah, nettles, because once you boil nettles, they don't have the poison in them, the sting in them, and they're actually tasting this bolita. I'm sort of thinking nettles. It's the same sort of lovely. How would you describe this? Leafy with a bit of attitude flavour.
One of the things I love doing, I think any chef loves doing, is looking at boats to see what they've caught. I think really this is where cooking starts. And in the restaurant where I was tasting those wild greens, the chef sort of insisted that he'd make me the local fish stew, made with whatever the fisherman had caught. Well, I like that, because that's the very essence of fish cookery. Use what's here and now. And as you'd expect, lots of vegetables, carrots, onions, parsley, tomatoes, potatoes, in olive oil, lots of olive oil. That's the base, and just water. Actually, when I made it, I added a bit of ouzo. But here, just water, and then saffron. He's not going to use all of this. He uses mayatiko. I had to look that one up because we don't get it at home. Red mullet. And chunks of white fish, bream, silver bream, prawns, and that'll do. It's not an expensive dish, and this will certainly feed about 4 people.
I'm not sure whether this is actually going to end up as a fish stew or a fish soup, but either way, I tend to judge fish restaurants on the quality of either stew or soup, and I found myself asking him, is there any wine in it, any ouzo in it, perhaps some brandy in it? And that's because I've become so used to fish stews being something more than they were ever intended to be. I mean, they were just stews that the fishermen made from the fish that they took home because they couldn't sell it. I mean, bouillabaisse started like that, and that's been elevated now into the most fantastical flavours. And if you try making something that approximated to what it used to be like, people say, that's not bouillabaisse. So, to taste. Oh, it's delish. Really, really nice. You can tell you've used really good fish. It's a lovely, simple fish stew, just what I expected. Cheers. Lovely. was just thinking, Greece is a really good country for thinking. It's warm and there's lovely walks like this along beaches like this. And I was also thinking, if this was Italy, would this beach look like this? Would it have this informality with just a few Greeks sitting in deck chairs? No. For a start, the beach would have been swept. It would be filled with deck chair concessions. There would be pizza and pasta shacks at the back, and it would cost you lots of euros to get anywhere near the water.
This is the famous Bay of Navarino. The very last sea battle under sail happened here nearly 200 years ago. Through these straits sailed 22 ships, British, French and Russian. And inside the bay were nearly 70 ships and boats from the Ottoman Empire. The subject on hand was peace. The Ottomans were slaughtering the Greeks, and all of Europe wanted it to stop. And so the British were here to look for a peaceful solution. However, it's said the Ottomans took a pot shot at a British ship. And then all hell broke loose. It finished with the sinking of the entire Ottoman fleet and the loss of their sailors. Admiral Codrington, the leader of the peaceful mission, got a huge telling off by the politicians and the hierarchy back at home. After all, he was supposed to be a peace envoy. But, without doubt, his actions, not that they would be copied today, shortened the war with the Ottomans and made Greek independence viable.
The Greeks really loved Admiral Codrington. Notice he's got pride of place. The other two, the French and the Russian, are just round the back.
For some reason, I'm in a serious holiday mood. I think it's Greece, really. And this farm come taverna, run by Narcos and his wife, Georgia, is just a few miles from Pylos. You'd never find it. But I think it's what Greek dreams are made of. Good food, straight from the farm, homemade wine, and a fabulous setting. Now this rooster is the reason I'm here, because there's a famous dish with chicken and pasta that I've heard about but never tasted. The basic rule here in this taverna is that if it's not reared and grown here, it's not on the menu.
I couldn't help noticing wandering around the back of the taverna this fabulous garden, kitchen garden I suppose. I was just looking at it and there's loads of tomatoes growing, loads of beans, lots of onions, courgettes over there, aubergines over there. I was thinking this actually is producing vegetables for the taverna. It's not like some of our trendy places back home with these very, very pretty herb gardens with a few vegetables. Is that for the kitchen or is it for the journalists?
You can just tell by the look of this. This chicken is straight from the farmyard. That is how it's always been on farms. Let's face it, you're not going to kill a chicken and keep it in a bag for a couple of days. No, it's straight in a pot. Look at that skin, golden and fatty.
Now, I just learnt an important culinary process in Greece, which is called kapamas, this dish. Basically just means taking a rooster, jointed rooster, and frying it in lots of olive oil, and I mean lots, and then adding tomato sauce and cinnamon, and simmering it till all's cooked. The kapamas means heavy, and I think it is going to be heavy, but they say it also means extremely delicious. And they serve it with a tiny pasta, which is just broken up pasta, called hilopita, and the combination, I know because I've had it many times here, is wonderful.
I love this pasta, hilopites. Little squares of egg pasta made in the summer months with whole wheat flour mixed with milk and dried for use in the winter. It's lovely. Just this in a well-made stock and sprinkled with some Mizithra cheese. It's a real delight.
People say, oh, Greek food, it's too simple, it's too easy. But what's the point? When it's made with really good ingredients like this, why would you want anything more complicated? It just works.
By any standards, this was top-class food. The place was just right. And I've always said that I much prefer lunch to dinner any day of the week. A long lunch with friends, good wine and lovely food is one of the great reasons why we're put on this earth. I'm sure about that.
So, what do you think?
I love this. It's really good. It's just one of those sort of like big, yummy dishes the Greeks do so well.
Yamas.
I do think that wine goes really well with it. Don't you?
I've got a friend called Colin who wants your job.
He wants a job.
Yeah, he says you're always going on your holidays.
On my holidays? Really? Does it look like that? Eating, drinking, wine, meeting great people along the way, having a fabulous time in filming land? Yes, I suppose I am. So now it's time to cook in my lovely kitchen on the island of Scilly. A dish that takes me back to when I was in my 20s. I remember it was particularly soothing first thing in the morning after a heavy night on the Retsina.
This is galaktoboureko. So, I'm making galaktoboureko, which is one of the most famous Greek puddings ever, and basically it's a semolina, baked semolina custard wrapped in crisp phyllo pastry, and it is absolutely delicious. And I actually cooked it for some friends of mine in Sydney, and it was the star of the evening. I'm going to whip up the yolks with sugar and a bit of vanilla, and then I'm going to fold in the whipped up whites later to give a lovely souffle-like semolina custard. And off we go. And what I'm looking to do here is to get a sort of white and fluffy look to my egg yolks and sugar. So that will take about 5 minutes. That's the right consistency now. I'm going to add my semolina. That just thickens the whole custard up and gives it body. So in that goes. And now a couple of ladlefuls of warm milk. And now I'm going to add that back into the milk and start cooking my custard till it all starts to thicken. That's really ready to go now. Just take that off the heat. Now I'm just going to whisk up some egg whites to fold into it. When this comes out of the oven, it will be puffed up like a souffle. And now to just fold in the egg whites.
Galaktoboureko means custard pie. And what a difference between a traditional British custard pie, which I like, don't get me wrong, and the Greek. It's light and fluffy. Now fold in the edges of the phyllo pastry. This will give it a really satisfying crunch to that soft, sweet centre. I know I've said this before, but when it comes to pies, the Greeks really know what they're doing.
Just put plenty of butter on the top so get a nice lovely glaze when it comes out of the oven. And we can go straight into the oven with that. Probably take about 40-45 minutes.
It goes extremely well with orange syrup. Basically dissolve about 400 grams of caster sugar in 200 millilitres of water and heat. Add the zest of 3 oranges and the juice of half a lemon. All you need now are thin slices of orange to make it look sublime. And that's it. The pie by now is cooked and the semolina custard has a healthy wobble to it. So that needs to cool until set. There you have it. It's a fab dish, the #1 pudding throughout Greece. Nostimo, as they say here, or at home, yummo. In the mountains above Pylos, there's a taverna. It's really famous, not only for food, but for the music. It's where you can eat and drink and dance with abandon. It's the sort of place where, if you're like me, you discover it on the final night of your holiday and you think, why didn't we know about this earlier? Like the best places, it's family run and the food is rustic. To me, it's the sort of food you really want to eat on holiday. Stuffed courgette flowers with tomato sauce, Greek meatballs and chips, stafado, that's a sort of Greek beef stew, fried cheese called saganaki, stuffed courgette flowers again, stuffed with minced spicy pork. Oh, and this lovely scrambled egg dish with fresh tomatoes and pork. It's called kayana. It's very popular. Pork and chips. The Greeks do the best chips in the world. Greek salads. Well, it wouldn't be Greece without a Greek salad. And vegetables cooked in a wood-fired oven. Souvlaki. Now this kebab brings me back to the first time I ever had Greek food. Pancakes with Mizithra cheese, a classic local dish in which you have about 5 pancakes layered with this astringent cheese like a cake. Or a lovely pork chop. That's got to be for the film crew, because they're so adventurous. The evening's just warming up, but I came here hours ago because I wanted to see how they made this famous lamb dish. So I met up with Panayotis, who runs the place.
Yamas, Rick.
Yamas.
Cheers.
Cheers. Crikey.
Okay.
It's a very nice one. So what are you cooking?
Okay, today we cook lamb with potatoes in the oven.
And in the wood oven?
Yes. Okay.
Well, let's begin.
Can we start?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm enjoying this. There's nothing to it. What a wonderful alternative to a bit of barbecuing, really. Just some potatoes, some lamb, a bit of oregano, salt, pepper, olive oil, lemon juice. Done, dusted, in the oven.
I have to admit that this is one of those dishes I took away with me and cooked back in Cornwall. Why? Because it's really easy and wonderfully tasty. You can use a shoulder of lamb, or indeed thick lamb chops, but the lamb must cook slowly and be ready without burning the potatoes. Important points: don't stint on the olive oil, lemon juice or oregano. Don't forget the rosemary and garlic, about 4 cloves, and use plenty of seasoning. It's a no-trouble dish. 2 hours in the oven, it's delicious.
You know, people get a bit sort of like, oh, we love Greece, but the food, I think, what? What do you mean, the food, you know? It's not Thailand, it's not Italy, it's Greece, and the food is appropriate to Greece, and once you get into the sort of frame of Greece, it's the best food ever.
Πότε θα πας στη Σάμο, όταν να ρίξω στο γυαλό, σαν νιώθησα για να έρθω να σε πάρω.
I think this would make a jolly good advertisement for our National Health Service. Here we are, men all in our 60s, leaping around like spring lambs. The tall man, the better dancer, is an olive farmer. I'm sure it's the olive oil that keeps his knees going. That, a healthy diet of fish, and the odd glass of wine. Yes, it's the much talked about Stein diet.
Cheers.
There's one dish I saw being cooked in that taverna, which is served from the poshest hotel restaurants to the little taverna next door to the bus station. It's so popular, and it's
Cheese saganaki.
First thing to do is to coat the cheese in semolina. This, as you're probably thinking, is not a terribly difficult thing to cook.
The accompaniment I best like with this fried cheese is honey and black sesame seeds and a little bit of oregano, of course. So I've got my pan hot here, just to add some olive oil. I think the secret with cooking the kefalotiri is not to cook it too much, so it's a sort of lovely combination of slightly molten cheese on the outside and firmer cheese inside. And you get this lovely satisfying combination. So those are just about done, so they go just straight into my serving dish. And now to heat up some honey.
Greek honey is quite wonderful, a revelation. Honey in Greek yogurt, the best breakfast there is.
They always seem to do it with black sesame seeds, but it's just very nice with ordinary sesame seeds too. I just think the black ones look very spectacular on top of the cheese. So I don't know why, but it's just a very satisfying combination of flavours. I've only come across this dish on this trip. I mean, I don't remember it in the early days in the 70s in Greece, finishing off with a bit of oregano. Now, actually, the way it's most often served is char grill, but I just think it's much better fried like this. It's delish.
The cheese to use is kefalotiri or halloumi. The Taygetos Mountains made the southern border of the famous Spartan Empire. It was like a wall. Whoever fancied attacking Sparta from the south had to get over this lot, full of chasms, ravines, with nigh-on impenetrable passes. And if you were mad enough, you then had to face the deadliest fighting force on earth, the Spartans. Men of few words, who were trained in the art of battle since infancy. While much of Greece had quite a sophisticated diet, from what I've heard, most of the Spartan soldiers ate black broth called melassamos. It was made with salt, vinegar, pig's legs and blood, lots of blood. By all accounts, it was horrible. But then again, it was a challenge. It wasn't for the weak-spirited. In the words of an Italian gourmand, no wonder they didn't fear death after eating this awful soup. going to the Byzantine city of Mistras, built overlooking the plain of Sparta on the side of the Taygetos mountains. It was often mistaken for Sparta, although it was built a mere 1400 years after the Spartans had been and gone. It was a thriving place to do business, famous for silk and mulberry trees.
Sometimes I find ruins a bit hard to imagine what it was all like before, but here at Mistras, I get it. I mean, this was the second most important Byzantine city in the empire after Constantinople. And there was 40,000 people that lived here. And just walking around the streets, you get that sense of it. And also, for me, a sense of the food and a sort of almost an idea of the smell of cooking. And the smell of cooking to me would be very much imbued with spice, because the Byzantines brought spice from the Eastern world into places like Mistras and Constantinople. Funnily enough, this morning I was just coming here, ordered a coffee, there was some cinnamon straight in the coffee. I thought, well, that's what it's all about. The other thing, of course, the Byzantines introduced a certain item into their cooking which hitherto had not been used, because in the western part of Christianity they regarded it as a symbol of the devil because it represented a trident. Yes, the fork.
For centuries in Britain too, the fork was regarded with great scorn. People ate with sharp daggers and their bare hands, and the fork was deemed far too fancy and not manly enough.
Well, this should be fun. The local gastronomic society have invited me for dinner, and the theme is going to be Byzantine food, so I'm really looking forward to it.
It was the local gastronomic society of Preveza, a town further north, that invited me. Its president and cook is Pavlos Alexandrou.
Looking forward to this food, I must say.
Come inside.
Thank you, thank you.
Pavlos told me this is an authentic recipe dating back nearly 1,000 years. It's beef cooked with wine and some vinegar, black pepper, sea salt, orange juice, a lovely mixture of sweet and sour, cumin, lavender, yes, lavender, and finally honey. The dish is called beef oxynelli, and it reminds me of a lot of old English cooking, and that probably would have come back with the Crusaders from the East, a mixture of sweet, savoury and spice. And so it was time to eat. There were other dishes there too, apart from the beef. There was rabbit fried and cooked with wine, and kokoretsi, that's the shepherd's dish made from grilled intestines from young lambs, and bream with fennel covered with Greece's most famous sauce, avgolemino, egg and lemon of course. That's lovely. But, you know, it was a bit difficult, because as far as I knew, no one spoke any English, and so it was quite hard for me to show my appreciation. Fortunately, Natalie, one of the younger guests, spoke English. Saved!
Πριν Υγεία, ευχαριστούμε που ήρθες εδώ στην Πρέβεζα να μας δεις και να σου δώσουμε αυτά που μαγειρεύουμε εμείς εδώ στα σπίτια μας.
What did he say?
He said, well, thank you for coming here in Preveza, for visiting us, and was it nice? Did you like it?
I liked it very much.
Okay, thank you. What did you like?
Well, everything, but more than that, I just think... Specifically, I like the beef with the honey and the orange with the cumin in it. Very Byzantine, I'd say that was. Avrolemino? Avrolemino.
Oh no, avro.
Right, egg and lemon. And I love the cocoridis. I didn't think I would, but I did. I love the rabbit. I love the beans. I love the fish. Everything.
Thank you.
Yamas.
Yamas, okay.
Yamas.
This is a bit of hero worship for me, because it's the home of Patrick Leigh Fermor. He was an adventurer and a great travel writer. As a young man, he walked the length of Europe to Istanbul. He was also a hero in the true sense of the word. His exploits in the Second World War were made into a film in the 50s starring Dirk Bogarde. It was a story of derring do. A young and dashing British officer kidnaps a German general. Unheard of, but true. Patrick Leigh Fermor is one of those Englishmen who the Greeks take to their heart, like Byron, like Admiral Codrington, and Gerald Durrell. The Greeks are like that. But once you're their friend forever.
I've heard about his study, but to come here is just fabulous. I mean, my first feeling is it's like he's just sort of left to go and buy something down in the village. Or Lavuza or something. I mean, I just love studies like this where everything's left as it was and you get such an impression of what somebody's like by their books more than anything else. I mean, there we got Deborah Devonshire, his best friend. They wrote to each other all the time. And over there it says own books. Oh, I like the look of that. I mean, he was a man of prodigious intelligence, incredible memory. He used to have dinner parties, large dinner parties. He loved people, loved talking. He drank quite a lot, smoked a lot. And somebody told me, I'm sure this is going too far, but at one dinner party, he recited the Owl and the Pussycat in Hindustani backwards. That's the sort of man he was. Oh, look, here we are. Winnie the Pooh in Latin, of course. Couldn't just be in English. He's got laurel leaves and a toga on. So what else have we got here? Bruce Chatwin really got on well with him. John Betchman. 2 John Betchmans. Jamaica Inn. Very dear to my own heart. I just get such a sense of him. I mean, lovely just to see the books that were really special to him. And I know I would have liked him.
This is Elpida, Patrick Leigh Fermor's housekeeper and cook. And this is her famous moussaka. You can't have a program about Greek food without moussaka.
Elpida, did Patrick Leigh Fermor, did he like moussaka?
He didn't like it at all.
Oh.
But once I made it, I cooked it without telling it to him. And I made a pot of 4, and he ate it all. And then he asked me, what was that? It was delicious. And I said it was moussaka. And he said, moussaka? I hated moussaka. I have never eaten moussaka. But now on, I will eat it from you. And just to cook it again.
Elpida told me her secret of a good authentic moussaka is to fry all the vegetables in olive oil first. That's potatoes, the aubergines, and courgettes. Put aside and let them cool and drain. Now the minced lamb fried in onion and garlic. She she uses a good half dozen of these big, juicy tomatoes. There's no water, just the juice of the tomatoes, lots of seasoning, a cinnamon stick, and a bay leaf.
To be honest, I've never had moussaka with potato before, but no, I never. But it's really, moussaka to me is almost a vegetarian dish. I know it's got lots of mince in it, but it's really about these lovely Greek vegetables cooked in olive oil. Don't you think?
Yes.
And also, I noticed you really fry the veg first.
Yes, because it's a better taste. Give a better taste.
And is that the secret of a good moussaka?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thought so. And have you got any more, Peter, secrets of a good moussaka?
Yeah, my secret is about the mincemeat, that I cook it only with fresh tomatoes, without water at all.
Without water?
I cook it only with the tomato juice. Excuse me, but your shirt is wet.
Well, it is blinking hot here, it really is. I mean, I thought Mediterranean heat, not like India, we're filming there, drenched in sweat, but it is hot.
Yeah, I'm like that as well.
Oh, good on you. I just get a bit embarrassed, really, because, I'm supposed to, lots of presenters have new shirts all the time, and it looks like they never sweat. That's just something to spend all the time.
You cannot do anything about it. It's the climate.
It is the climate. I like you.
So, I'm sure you know about layering the dish. First of all, potatoes, then a coating of minced lamb, aubergines, more mince, and finally courgettes. Now add the remainder of the mince on top. This is followed by a very creamy bechamel sauce made with 200 grams of butter and the same of flour. Add more flour if necessary. Put in about 1.5 litres of full fat milk. You need lots of this sauce to be layered on top to make it really creamy. Whisk it until it's thick and smooth. Turn off the heat because you don't want the 3 beaten eggs to scramble. Season well with lots of pepper and salt, and then 3/4 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. Once that's done, grate, if you can get it, some Graviera cheese. It's a hard sheep's milk cheese, a bit like manchego.
Now then, how long in the oven, Peter? How long?
About 20 minutes, half an hour. That's
Okay.
to get brown on the top.
We can wait.
Yeah.
Finally, a little blessing of the grated Graviera cheese. And here it is in all its golden glory. A good moussaka, homemade, is a rare and many splendid thing.
Well, I think you know what I'm going to say. It's the best moussaka I've ever tasted, no question about it. I think what I really love about it is it's so light. It's just light as a feather. I think this is making me very excited because what I want to say is people are quite rude about Greek food, but they don't get to taste a moussaka like this. I mean, this is seriously a world-class dish, the way you cooked it.
I believe that.
Okay, what's your yamat?
Yamat.
Oh, just by the way,
Yeah.
what's your favourite English dish?
Chicken curry.
Chicken curry. Yes.
I like it.
I don't particularly care for these road signs. If I was on a camping holiday here, I think it could well upset the missus. I'm sure it's just a playful bit of target practice, but it helps helps reinforce the feelings that this area for hundreds, many hundreds of years was a land of brigands, pirates, cutthroats, and by and large some extremely difficult but resilient people. The Turks ruled Greece for centuries, but they gave this area, the Mani, a wide berth. I'm not taking my eyes off this infernal road. I can't stand heights. Down there, somewhere at the bottom, is one of the most important places in Greek mythology. It's the entrance to Hades, the gateway to hell. I'm travelling with Rupert Smith, a classical scholar and one of those Englishmen who relish morsels of Greek history like a cormorant with a shoal of sprats.
I'm pretty glad this is a paved road, I must say.
Yeah.
I'm not a great lover of hairy roads like this, but
it's a good view from this side.
I bet, sorry. But I'm enjoying being the other side.
Yeah.
God, that is so special.
Really good, isn't it? So this is somewhere not many tourists get to. It's a village, it's called Mundanistica.
Mundanistica.
The people of Mani mainly fought either between villages, with various clan chieftains fighting each other, or within villages, hence each house having its own tower.
So, like, these are two neighbours.
Yeah.
They would be shooting at each other.
They could be, if they were having a feud, a vendetta. The towers, pretty as they may be, are an indication of what a vicious and violent place this was to live. You know, they were permanently fighting each other for this barren land. You can see over here,
you just
tiny
think,
little terraces.
What's it worth fighting? Why is it worth fighting for?
That's because that was all they had. You know, they didn't have any lush meadows, and they just had these hillsides which they had to chop up into tiny terraces to, just to support themselves. And that's how life went on. They'd stop occasionally. They would have a truce or a treva, using the Italian word for some reason, when they needed to go and bring in the harvest, or if there was a funeral or a baptism or a marriage. Life had to go on in that respect. They had to feed themselves and had to marry each other and what have you. In fact, there was one extraordinary case where two families were fighting. They were actually from different villages. There was one family from the north fighting another in the south, shooting each other across a very narrow area. And one of the attackers saw a woman who was going back and forth, or a young woman going back and forth between the in and out of the tower where the defenders were, and he thought, cool, I like her. And he said, right, stop, I want to have a truce, I want to marry that girl. And
don't believe it.
They stopped, they called the priest, and they were married right there, bang, in the middle of the battle. And then they went back shooting each other.
I've never been to a place like it. It's like a ghost village. Just looking into one of these houses. Will it be a kitchen? I don't know. But there are all the clues. Mostly to the drudgery that was the women's work. Harvesting the grains, crushing the olives, making the bread. The men would be keeping lookout and having the odd pot shot from tower to tower. Life, like the landscape, was as hard as it gets.
Why didn't they pack up and go to Messalongi or go to Athens or something?
I think they would say freedom was the answer. They could live the way they wanted to live, not bothered by whoever was in charge, mainly the Ottomans. When the Greek War of Independence came along, they had their own rallying cry separate from the rest of Greece. The rest of Greece had a rallying cry, freedom or death, whereas the people of Mani, because they felt they were already free, talked about victory or death. So, that was their view. They were free, the rest of Greece was in
It's sort of
chains.
funny, it doesn't look like it, but in a way I'm sort of thinking of Cornwall now, really, because in a way Cornwall's like a peninsula off the end of the rest of Britain.
Yeah.
And there's a certain sense of independence and individuality of that.
Topographically extremely similar. If you carpeted this in sort of green and flowers, you would have Cornwall.
Shall Trelawney live? Shall Trelawney die? There's 40,000 Cornishmen will know the reason why.
Victory or death.
Victory or death.
spent a long time up in that almost deserted village, and we met one of the only inhabitants who gave us some superb wild mountain oregano to take home with us. They say the generosity of the Manios is second to none. I've often found that the harder the landscape, the more generous the people are. I honestly had no idea this beautiful place was here, but for me it cried out like a siren from the Odyssey. Come to me, I've got fresh sardines waiting for you. This is how I think of Greece. Look at those little darlings straight from the grill. A carafe of cold retsina and the inevitable Greek salad, which I eat every day with great delight.
I was looking at what we call a call sheet, which is what you have every day to see what's happening. It says, travel through the Marni with Rupert, talking about the village with the towers in it, which was really interesting. But then he just said, actually, I had some very nice sardines at this place called Quail Bay. Quail Bay?
Port of the Quails, yeah.
And as soon as I heard fresh sardines, I thought, history's one thing, fresh sardines is something totally different. And I had in my mind, all I wanted, fresh sardines, Greek salad, and Greek chips. Greeks make the best chips in the world. I don't know whether it's the waxy potatoes or what they cook them with.
Always fresh.
They never taste as good back home. Well, ours are alright, but seriously, I'm in heaven.
And I want to cook now a dish that I think would certainly be recognised by the people who tended those terraces overlooking the sea many years ago. So in my kitchen on the island of Simi, let us begin.
This is Gigante stew, big beans with spinach and tomato. So first of all, I've just got lots of olive oil because these dishes are characterised by a great deal of olive oil. In a pan, first of all some garlic and onion. But the ingredient that I remember best about this stew, which you find all over Greece, is wild oregano. Rigani is the Greeks name it. Now you find this dish all over Greece, but this one is a memory for me of the Marni. And the smell of it, when you look at the barrenness of that village and look at the vegetation around it, and in fact the vegetation in much of the Marni, it's so barren, you think how could anything grow there? But it does. So, there we have the fried garlic and onions, the oregano, and next I'm going to add some paprika and tomato. A good teaspoon or so of tomato puree. And now I'm just going to chop some tomatoes to go in there too.
I first had this dish in Epirus in northern Greece, and it was lovely. But the flavours really came alive for me as my journey took me further south into guaranteed sunshine. Sunshine really makes things taste better. Locals collect wild herbs the same way as they collect the wild greens, or horta, which goes very well with the jarred butter beans. But I'm opting for spinach here because it's much more readily available at home.
Sometimes Gigantes comes with spinach, sometimes without, but I'm doing it with spinach. I'm just turning it over a little bit, and it's very simple to cook. You just let it wilt down in its own steam. So that'll take about 2 or 3 minutes. So that's really wilted down nicely. The spinach like this is almost a sauce, and I know in a lot of Indian dishes they use spinach just to thicken the sauce. And that's really what is happening here too. So that's ready to go into my casserole. But first of all, my gigantes, my big butter beans, which I've cooked for, well, it was about an hour, hour and a half at a very gentle pace so they become tender but don't break up. And now for my spinach and tomato sauce. stir that in. Now I need to put some more seasoning because I didn't cook those beans in salted water, so quite a lot of salt in there now. Some pepper. There we go. And now a bit of more water. It's a little bit dry, but I want a really tight sauce when this all finishes. And finally, some more olive oil. Can't have enough olive oil in this dish. Perfect dish for good quality Greek olive oil. Give it a final stir. On goes the lid. And now into a sort of low to medium oven for, well, really, almost as long as I like. Time to go for a swim at least.
A couple of thousand years ago, there was a Roman poet called Martial, who I would have got on terribly well with. He said, "If pale beans bubble for you in a red earthenware pot, you can oft decline the dinners of sumptuous hosts." How true is that? These Romans really knew their stuff. There's nothing new gastronomically, except foam, and that won't be around for long. Now, some feta and parsley. This is the town of Areopoli, named after Ares, the god of war. This is where the battle started for Greek independence. These maniots were as tough as old boots. Petrobase, the head guy here, took on the Turks and gave them a bloody nose. It was like a bolt of electricity, a signal throughout the whole of Greece. But I declare that today I've had quite enough history, thank you very much, and I'm only interested in goat. Cooked here by Maria in the very heart of Areopoli, an extremely agreeable town.
Well, I've just watched this being cooked. Oh, it is so good. People come from far and wide for this. They call it young goat. It seemed to me to be quite big for a young goat. I thought it was lamb to start with, but it's not. I suppose it's because I've been filming in India recently, and the goats are tiny. These are serious manioc goats with big muscles. Absolutely lovely. And what Maria did first of all was just take a big, well, I like to say a washing up bowl, and she had all the goat in there, and then she chopped lots of potato in there. I just loved watching her doing that, because it's not like a chef getting on the chopping board. It's like a proper housewife doing it like that. So she cut up, cubed lots of potato, and then about 3 or 4 cloves of garlic in there too. The next thing she did, I couldn't see what she'd done to cook them, but she took a whole plate of spring onions and put those in there. And then what I thought was leeks, but in fact it was green garlic. It was like garlic shoots that she put in there too. Now she already had the artichoke bottoms already prepared and cooked, and so she added those in with the goat. And then now she started to make the marinade. She started with lots of lemon juice, about 100 millilitres, and you can taste that in the potatoes actually. It comes through really pleasantly. Next she added about a tablespoon of tomato puree, and then a couple of tablespoons of passata, tomato passata. Then about a teaspoon of pepper, and then loads of salt. The locals here are very keen on their manioc salt. It's sea salt, quite sort of moist, and they say it's saltier than any other salt. She used a lot of it. I mean, I'd probably just go for a couple of teaspoons back home, but I wouldn't quite get that sort of bang of saltiness. So good. Then she added mustard powder, about a tablespoon, and then sugar, again about a tablespoon. And finally, for the marinade, she added about 100 millilitres of water and just poured it over the lamb, the potatoes and the artichokes, and then got her hands in there and just turned it all over. Now And the next thing she did I thought was fabulous. She took a really large roasting tin and tons of fennel, loads of fennel. I really like that bit because it's such a local herb, and really pleased to see it being used in such large quantities. It was about that deep in the dish. And then she took the artichoke bases and potatoes, and then she put all the goat meat right over the potatoes. And then she poured all the marinade on the top of that. And then she went mad, wild with the olive oil. She poured about 150 millilitres of olive oil all over the top. And then that went into a hot oven, about 200, 220 degrees, for 3 hours. And here it is. And I can tell you, it is very nice indeed. The goat is deliciously moist and tender. And more than that, I love the combination of the olive oil, the fennel, and the lemon juice. Yes. Next time I'm leaving Greece and heading for Turkey, but not before some delicious red mullet and grilled octopus. Octopus is Greece. And now to Turkey. Drop the bell! You have to shout in this country? Fabulous. Just the one, thanks for me. More fish. And that means lovely spicy stews, great bread and more spice, definitely more spice. I mean, this is just so exciting, and why shouldn't you have a breakfast like this? It's so voluptuous, I would say. And if you haven't tried koftas on the motorway, wow, this is heaven. And so my gastronomic journey from Venice to Istanbul continues.
The BBC book for Rick Stein's series From Venice to Istanbul is available now. Coming up after Newsnight next, the inspirational story of the ill-fated gay activist whose life changed history. Sean Penn is Harvey Milk at 11:15.